Hey, good morning. It's Chad with the Word and Coffee. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, about a month. Reason for that was a couple of the guys, or actually, there's about three guys that I specifically kind of do these for that had asked me about doing them, and they had been in and out of town on vacation, some sickness, some different things, and so we kind of were holding off on getting back into this until everybody was able to be able to see it in real time. Sometimes there's some sharing that goes on back and forth and some phone calls and texts and stuff. So, anyway, that was why we kind of took a little bit of a hiatus. And honestly, uh, we've been pretty busy ourselves. We've got a lot that goes on towards the end of the summer and into the first part of the fall. So, got really busy for a while, but hopefully we can get back into this. I've had several people reach out to me and ask me when we were going to get started back. So, glad that there's some interest from some people. So let's get started. We're in chapter 13 of Genesis. So to recap what had just happened in chapter 12, Abraham had been called out to go to the promised land, and he went and he took Lot with him. They got there. They were there for a little while, and Abraham built an altar, and was seeing the land that God had promised him, and a famine hit, and so they went down into the land of Egypt, where um, Abraham pretty quickly messed up by telling Pharaoh that Sarah was his sister, not his wife, and so we just at the end, Pharaoh has kicked them out and said, get out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want to be cursed for doing something I shouldn't have done. So leave. So now then, Abraham has been told by Pharaoh to get out of Egypt, and we're going to start in 13. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and in silver and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Beret El. I'm reading out of a Hebrew translation here, so sometimes I have a hard time with the pronunciations. But unto the place where his tent had been in the beginning, between Beit El and Ai, unto that place of the altar which he had made there at first, and Abram called there on the name of the Lord. So he goes back to the place that he had first entered the land and made the altar, and he calls on the name of the Lord. Uh, so we're not sure, since the Bible mentions this, that's where he called on the name of the Lord. Maybe Abraham had gotten a little bit out of touch with the Lord. We know that he had gone and done things he wasn't supposed to do. So, and Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. So, just not able to sustain everything that the livestock needed. They were just getting in each other's way, and the land couldn't keep up with all the grazing and everything that the flocks were doing. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt then in the land. So, we still had the people living there that were living there at the time. I'll make a point in just a few minutes, but so the Canaanites and the Perizzites were there first. They were already there. It was their land, so to speak, at the time, according to the way that we would look at things. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray, between you and me, and my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is it not whole? Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou takest the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that is well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou goest unto Zoar. Now, so this is the plain of Jordan. It was supposed to be gorgeous and lush and well watered and green. And so Lot looked up and saw that and said, hey, I think I'm going to go this way. I'm going to take the best. I'm going to take what's going to be good for me. And Abraham, you can have whatever. So Lot chose him all the plain of the Jordan. And Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves from one another. Now, I think that it's pretty interesting. Again, we get into that traveling east. Every time we see anything in Genesis that speaks of the east, it's going away from God. It's a symbol that you're leaving God's presence as you travel east. We saw that, where we saw Cain going east of Eden, and so many times, so far we've talked about it. There's been 2 or 3 other times that every time that there's a reference to traveling east, it is leaving the presence of God and leaving His protection and leaving what He had put in place for those people. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and then moved his tent as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners against the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot had separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land that thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if any man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for unto thee will I give it. And Abram moved his tent and came and dwelt by the terebinth of Mamre, which are in Chevron. And he built there an altar unto the Lord. So, over the last few days, we've seen some pretty interesting things happening in the land of Israel. The Palestinians, through Hamas, have attacked southern Israel just a couple of days ago. They moved through the border fence that the Israelis have put up around Gaza to keep them from invading the rest of the land, and they've decided that they're going to attack that land. And we hear a lot of people, even in the government of the United States, that are basically calling on Israel to not defend themselves and to let the Palestinians have the land. And they're pointing back to something that we mentioned a minute ago about how they were in the land. The Canaanites and Perizzites were in the land, and it's looked at that the land of Israel came and just took their land from them. Well, that's not what happened at all. God Himself, who owns everything, who owns every subatomic particle in the universe, gave it to Abraham, and He says He gave it to them forever. There's also this idea, from a lot of people, a lot of Christians want to say, well, God took that all back, and He didn't promise them anything because they rejected His Son. When God says forever, I think God means forever. That is unequivocal. It doesn't mean that just because we did something wrong, God's going to change what He said. God said forever. He told Abraham, I'm giving you this land forever. It's going to be for you and your descendants forever. It belongs to them because God gave it to them, period. And there's anything that we can say, any law we can make, any war that we can wage that can change what God Himself has ordained. He gave the land of Israel to the Israelis. He gave it to the children of Israel, to the 12 tribes. And it belongs to them. Now, I know that the 10 northern tribes have been dispersed, and basically all that's left, that we know of being still as the land of Israel is really the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, which were the southern tribes. But the fact is that God knows who the other people that were the nation of Israel are, and He has given this land, said, to those people and to Abraham's descendants, and that won't be changed because we don't want it to be in some way, because man has decided to do something different. And I just think that right now, as Christians, we have to decide, where we stand on these things. And we, as I said, we have people in our own government who want for us to pull back away from Israel, and who want for us to side with people who are attempting to take something that God has not given them, but God has given to the nation of Israel. And I think it's a dangerous thing for us to do, to start siding with the enemies of God. We're becoming a nation that is unrecognizable to people who would have grown up here just 40, 50, 60 years ago. I myself just, grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I look at this nation and I'm amazed. I've often said that, the people that I would have considered to be so far on the wrong side of things just 20 years ago look like they're middle of the road now, because of how far away from God so many people have moved, and how far away from God's laws and commands we've moved in this nation. And wanting to say what's wrong is right and what's right is wrong has become the norm in this nation. And it's really disheartening, and for those of us who have children, to know that our children are growing up in that, and seeing, the problems that creates. It's tough. A great friend of mine was talking to me the other day, and he was talking about reading in Isaiah chapter 38 and 39, and how God, how God ordains things. And I went back and read those chapters, and it is something that it should be comforting to us as Christians to know it's all in God's hands. He's lifting up leaders, and He's putting people in place to accomplish His purposes. That doesn't mean, as Christians, that we should not vote the way that our conscience through the Holy Spirit leads us to vote, and that we shouldn't study and know what's going on politically so that we can respond in a Christian manner with a Christian worldview, and attempt to support those things which are good and right and godly. As a matter of fact, I think to the contrary of what I'm saying about how God ordains these things, we have a responsibility to do just that. And as we do those things, as we pray and we attempt to make sure that we're doing what God calls us to do as good Christian citizens, we also do need to have the idea that no matter who's sitting in the White House, no matter who controls Congress, no matter who controls our state legislatures, our governorships, God Himself is who ordains those things. He's the one who sets them up. And sometimes it's for punishment. I believe we've seen a punishment in our government in the United States over the last few years. I believe that we're being judged for the stance that many in our nation have taken, and that many Christians have allowed to be taken and have not stood up against. And I believe with all my heart that we're going to have to answer for that, and that's part of the judgment we're going through now. So I'll leave you with this. Pray for Israel. Pray for those people that are there. Pray that God's purposes will be accomplished. Have a good day.